Good evening and welcome to our regular board meeting on Thursday, February 12th, 2026. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Tonight's roll call, we have Rob and Ray excused. We have Timmy joining us via Zoom, and Joe is going to try to chime into Zoom as well.
Joe's there.
Okay, great.
Oh, I see
Joe on Zoom. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda tonight.
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to add capital requests for the golf bridge repairs under new business 8C. And I'd like to remove the executive session for legal, item 7.
Move.
All in favor of the amended agenda?
Aye.
That's good. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 2. Oh, can I get a motion to adopt the amended agenda? Or did I just do that?
No.
Okay, yeah.
Second.
Thank you, Linda. All in favor of the adopted agenda?
Amended.
The amended agenda, thank you. You've got it unanimous. Thank you, it's unanimous. Okay, item number 2 is announcements. We'll have Joanne, and then anyone else if they have them.
I have announcements.
Okay, I'll go first time. Monday, February 16th is President's Day, and SVCA offices will be closed. You get that day off. And my next announcement is for board members. Usually during board orientation, our legal counsel, Richard Davis, reviews anti-harassment policy that's been in place for several years. In the interest of saving some money and time, I asked him to not do that part of his presentation. And instead, over the next week, in your board email, you will receive a link to an online training that reviews the concepts related to harassment and tactics for avoiding situations that might lead to a harassment claim. When you get that email, we'll also be sending you a link to Sudden Valley's anti-harassment policy, and we ask that you take a minute to refresh your knowledge of that. So the first email will give you a link to a training platform. You'll need to log in and create a password for yourself, and then you will have been assigned one class, and it takes about 35 minutes to complete. And we tested this all out with staff, so it works perfectly well. And then you'll be done. And then you'll get another email that will take you directly to that policy online. And we ask again that you review that, and then you'll be squared away. Thank you.
This will be followed by a test, so everybody. Any other announcements?
I have 3.
Okay, Timmy, and we'll then get to your question. Go ahead, Timmy.
I just want to let everybody know that Trivia in the Barn is coming back again Friday, February 20th. I heard it was pretty successful, so that's coming back. That's at 7 o'clock, and that is a Friday. Also, something new that we have going on in Sudden Valley, we're having a spring market, and that is going to be Saturday, March 28th. We're still looking for vendors to sign up. That'll be from 10 to 3. So hopefully that'll be a really successful spring market, something everybody can go to and enjoy. And then on this coming Tuesday, February 17th from 2 to 4, there's a seniors pie tea. We did one last year, and we're going to do one again this Tuesday. We still do have spaces. I want to make sure that the guys know this is not just a women's only event. We had men there before, and we have some men coming, so hopefully we'll get a few more people coming out.
Very good, thank you.
That includes you and Tom, Keith.
What time and where?
2 to 4 in the barn.
2 to 4, February 17th. The high tea.
It's really nice, guys. It really is. Last year it was just beautiful.
Yeah, Linda's helping out again and Jean's helping out, so it should be a really good event.
Okay. Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, on the training for,
Anti-harassment,
is that for the new directors or is that?
everybody, it's a
Everybody.
refresher for everybody.
Okay.
In case you forgot anything.
I think it's one of our longest policies under policies. It covers everything from A to Z.
Okay, item number 3, and no more announcements, I take it. Item number 3 is property owner comments, 15 minutes total. Do we have any property owner comments tonight? Please step up, you have 3 minutes or so, and state your name, your address, and so forth.
Just so I can see everybody here.
Hi.
My name is Terry Hall. I've lived here in the Valley since 2014. I appreciate Daniel letting me know about the meeting and coming here, and I appreciate all you guys do. I know this is volunteer stuff. You put in a lot of time. I appreciate what you do for all of us residents here. So my concern is I live up on 4 North Summit Drive, and we moved in 2014, as I said. 2015, we got a letter from Sudden Valley saying that there was an offer that we could buy the property next to us on Twin Flower Circle, a very good price, be merged into our property because it was too small to build on, that's what the letter said. And so only we would have this opportunity because we were the other side is a green space. Apparently y'all, I don't know if y'all don't keep those kind of records, because I've brought this up before. Folks said they don't find any record of that, but because eventually somebody did start building on it. And what they did was, to build on it, they needed to jackhammer through solid rock for a couple of months.
I don't mean to laugh, but been there. I hear what you're saying. Somebody up by us.
That's what we lived with for 2 solid months plus, 8 hours a day. The property they chose to build as close as they possibly could legally to our property. So this is what we were looking at and what we were listening to. I contacted the office here to see if anything could be done. No, nothing could be done. My wife eventually had, for the first time in her life, a panic attack, had to be taken to the hospital, living with this for all this time. And I just have to say, as a property owner, I just truly do not understand why a place that we were told was too small to build on was sold for building on anyhow. And then on top of that, it was, I mean, you probably could have put houses in there. I talked to the realtor that bought it or that had it up for sale. And he just kind of laughed, and I told him that. He said, oh, any property can be built on if you put the right size house. Except this is a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. This is not a small house. And the property itself, the vast majority of it, or at least more than half of it, was solid rock. And so they jackhammered this thing out. And just as a side note, that house remains unsold. People come in and look at it, see how close it is to ours. We've only seen 2 people even look at it since it's been done for a 1.5 years now. And I just wonder why Sudden Valley would allow that. I talked to the guy who was doing the jackhammering. We started off having congenial conversations, and ended up that way. He said he could do that for 8 hours a day. That was what was allowed here. Started at 8 in the morning, went till 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, usually till 5. I wasn't the only neighbor concerned about that. Obviously, the people right across the road, it was like they were in an amphitheater getting this jackhammering noise. And I just honestly don't understand it. On top of that, of course, we have no doubt we have lost considerable value in our own property by having this thing dropped in right next to us, so close to that. So, pretty that concerned. I wonder if y'all are interested in that, or if you have any other thoughts about that, or
What's the address on Twin Flower?
4 North, 4
You're
Twin
4
Flower, and
North.
I'm 4 North Summit, so we have a lot of problem with Amazon
Couple of
with this
fours.
stuff, but that's a separate issue.
Can you send an email regarding this subject to myself and to Joanne Jensen?
I would be delighted to do that, Keith, and I've sent more than one, I've sent numerous
Yeah.
ones. I had great cooperation from the office and trying to respond to things.
When was that? Like, can I just, how long ago was that?
Oh, it's been, well, the house has actually been on site for a year and a half. They cleared the timber out and sold that when I was for that, so we're back probably, it's 26 now, 24, maybe even 23, that
Doesn't ring a bell.
we started this. Yeah, and the other thing, as soon
I
as,
remember it, I
Oh,
received
you
all
did?
those calls, and there, yeah.
as soon as I laid out what they were kind of mapping to do it, I called the office to say, it looks to me like it's clearly going to occupy considerably more than 50% of that property, which I believe is what the limit is
Yeah.
on our place. Was told, oh, well, wait till they actually get the things in there. I did, made it more obvious that it was gonna be more than 50%. I called back again. I asked for someone to come out and actually measure it, because I still am quite convinced that it violates our own rules about how much of the property is being taken up. And so I would certainly be glad to send another email.
Yeah, if you would, because we were out of your allotted time here, but I would say that the county wouldn't even allow it to be over 50% of the lot. So there had to be verification on that, and we have our own rules to check when someone submits through their process. There's a checklist they go through to verify all these things. I don't know who told you that it wouldn't be a buildable lot, because I would say almost all are, like someone already told you, everything can be built on if you can find a way and a means to do it.
Well, that came from the central office here in writing to me. Unfortunately, I didn't think it had any longer. We couldn't afford the money at that time, so we weren't able to do it, but
Unfortunately.
anyhow, thank you so much for taking the time to hear me. I really
Well, thank
appreciate
you
it.
for taking the time to come in.
Sorry that-
Appreciate that. Spencer, do we have any other?
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I let you have a little extra time because I didn't think no one else would be here.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. All right, moving on next, we have the consent agenda for the approval of our meeting minutes for our Thursday, January 22nd, 2026 meeting.
There are lots of typos. Rob Gibbs is spelled Rob, G-O-B-B-S. In the memo.
Rob Gobbs?
Yeah. It's just little stuff, but it's all throughout these minutes. I don't know if you want me to go through one by one. You know, that was the first one I.
Is it
came
just
across.
typos?
Yeah, it's just that, and for instance,
Right.
on the capital request, look at 8E. Instead of saying seconded by, it should be Director Chappie, should have been up if his name is placed under died. And the one below is the same thing, it's just needs to be moved up and corrected.
Oh, I see.
And then there's one in motion one, at the toward the very end of the sentence, it goes, staff can complete the word verse when to bring in one of the on-call. It should be verses, but it says verse. And I think that's all I found.
Okay,
No,
so
they
I have
spelled-
those-
and they spelled
I have
the
those three.
Go ahead, and then you gotta fix Rob's name at the beginning, and then at the
Right.
very end, there's a motion to adjourn the meeting. The D in adjourned is
Yeah.
missing.
Misspelled.
It's just little itty bitty stuff, but it's there.
Okay,
with those changes, I have them all noted.
Hey, it works.
How many changes did you have? Four. Okay, so that, okay, all in favor of approving the agenda based on the typo corrections along with all four corrections? Just say it that way.
One second.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor with those corrections?
Aye.
That's unanimous. There's four total. All right, moving on to item number 5 is our reports. We'll start out with our GM report. Joanne?
Thank you, Keith. January saw freezing temperatures descend on Sun Valley for the first time in the winter. That was exciting. Maintenance did get the chance to plow a little bit of snow in the higher elevations, and we applied brine a couple of times to the roads, but that has literally been all of our activity regarding snow removal, which is a good thing, because we saved a little money on that, so that's a good thing. And all of our departments have been using the quiet time that we experienced in January to get ready for the busier spring and summer that lie ahead. Marina renewals are something that we're working on in admin and recreation. Packets were mailed to 344 marina and kayak storage renters on January 7th as planned, so we met our deadline. And as of 1/28, when this report was written, 73 renewals have been completed, which was just over 20% of the total. I received an updated report, and we're now at 40% of the wet slips have been renewed, 28% of the dry slips have been renewed, and 37% of canoe and kayak spaces have been renewed. So we've made some healthy progress. That's a good thing. In addition to the renewals, we've also gotten some terminations. So as we get those, staff begins reaching out to individuals who are on the waiting lists. And as a reminder to everyone, the renewals have to be complete by the 25th of this month. After that date, anyone who hasn't renewed, those spaces will be offered to people on the waiting lists.
Did we put an ad in the paper regarding that?
Yes,
We did.
There was an ad in the paper, and we've been reminding people via email, and everybody got a letter. So tree removals is the next topic. January was a very busy month for tree removals. I put in a little table to show year-to-date activity in context with what we did in total for the couple of previous years there. So when I wrote this report, we had 11 tree requests, 4 were able to be handled by maintenance. We had 1 tree that needed to be evaluated by an arborist, and 7 trees had to be referred to an outside contractor. And in January, $28,179 was spent on tree removals by outside contractors. The majority of that amount, $16,755, was spent on the removal of just 2 trees, very large ones,
The size of that.
that were close to multiple homes and or roadways. The picture that I included here gives you a sense of the size of the large Doug fir that was removed recently. So that gentleman standing next to the tree is over 6 feet tall.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was a big tree. And that required a crane. It had to be limbed, and the limbs had to be lowered carefully, and then they took it down in sections. We did send a lot of timber to the mill in January, and we're hoping to recoup some of that cost, but it's still a massive number. And unfortunately, since I wrote this report, which was only 2 weeks ago, we've added $13,709 for an amazing year-to-date total for middle of February of $41,888 spent on tree removals. So it's a good thing that we increased the budget as we did. Next topic is golf. Golf revenues in January are significantly higher than we had last year. This growth is due to a large increase in the sale of 2026 memberships. So the way it works is people are incentivized to purchase memberships in the last months of the year for the next year because they get a little bit of a discount. And that stimulated a lot of sales this year. Memberships accounted for $156,649 in revenue, which is a 39% increase over the previous year, so quite a massive increase. Golf director Kevin Leduc feels that this is a really positive sign, and he points to the fact that a good portion of this growth comes from intermediate memberships. In 2026, we have 61 intermediate members, and these are people between 18 and 28 years of age that qualify for that membership. In 2024, 2 years ago, we only had 18 people in that category. And then last year it increased to 49, and again, we're seeing a very significant increase. And that's good, of course, because these are younger people who can continue to play golf. Folks at my age who are buying memberships are playing less and less, right? But the young folks still have the ability to get out there and play, which is awesome.
You're in that age group, aren't you?
Sadly, no. And so, while it's really good to see an increase in memberships overall, there is a fear that that could cannibalize revenues in the actual year. And so we're going to keep a really close look at that. And Joel and I did some back of the envelope calculations. And indeed, although we had a really strong December for memberships, it did cannibalize some of our revenue. We see about a $5,000 difference between true January revenues if you take out the pre-revenues that kind of get moved over. We did see a decrease of $5,000. So you have to be really careful in watching that. The next part of the GM report is a summary of our capital project status. As you can see, as the board approves a new project, it gets added to this, and we'll see the numbers grow over the course of the year. At this point, we've assigned the new project numbers on roads. The funds are ready to be accessed. We, in fact, had to access some of that funding in January, as you'll hear later in the meeting. And so we're in good shape for the year. Are there any questions?
Nope, apparently not. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to financial statements. Joel? Welcome, by the way.
Thank you. Okay.
2 minutes left.
Okay, so I'm going to be going over the November financial statements. And at this point, obviously at this point of the year, I'm just going to cover the real important things, the highlights of the statements themselves. Okay, so with the balance sheet, obviously I start out with the balance sheet, then I go to the income statement, but really the only thing I really want to point out with the balance sheet is this cash number. So you can see the operating cash right here. December 31, 2024 is close to 579,000. At the end of November, 346,000. So you see a decrease of cash of about 233,000. 33,000. Yeah. So basically, this decrease in cash, what really hits cash is the operating type expenditures. And one thing that has really done this is the spending on trees at the end of 2024, especially when the board approved, that the reclassification of all the trees from capital expenditures to operating expenditures. So then at that point, we originally started paying for it out of roads and SURF, a good chunk of that, and then we undid that, so to speak. So then operating reimbursed SURF and roads to restore those funds whole again. But that's why you'll notice like a decrease in cash, in operating cash from, especially if you look back in prior years, like December 31, 2023 versus 2024, and then November 30, 2025, the things that obviously really drag down operating cash will be all our, exactly what it says, operating expenditures. So for several, like $300,000 to $400,000 of tree expenditures at the end of 2024, and even getting into 2025, all of that comes from the operating cash, and that is kind of the main driver that's really driving down that account. Okay, so going to the income statement, so basically this is the consolidated income statement, we'll just hit on the high points. You can see that we budgeted at a 95% collection rate. At the end of November, we're sitting at 97.69% collection. And I already know at the end of December of 2025, so we finished out the year at 97.97% collection rate. So what that means is since we budgeted for 95%, we finished out at, basically 98%. That means we took an additional $89,000 more in dues revenue than we budgeted for, which obviously that's what we want. So that helps out the operating surplus, the budgeted operating surplus. At the end of December 2024, it was 97.95%. So, and in December 2025, 97.97, basically 98%. At the end of December 2024, 97.95%. So real close to the last year. Last year, actually, you're curious, at the end of December 2024, we took an additional about $82,400 in dues revenue, better than budget dues revenue. And this year we did a little better at $89,000. Now you can see, if we just skip right down to the bottom line, so to speak, for operating income. So I'm looking at this number right here. You can see that we have at the end of November, $168,411 in operating income. At the end of November of 2024 was $363,171. So it is obviously less than what it was at the end of November of 2024. And this sort of stuff, like for example, the great thing about these financial statements is you'll see like these main expenditure categories right here, anything with the brackets around it, this is worse than budget. And so just to basically tell you the bottom line of this sort of stuff, you can see that contract and professional services, and there's another page we can go to, which we won't, but deeper on, it's really not that much deeper, it's just a few pages more into the financial statements. You could look at any one of these categories and it'll tell you exactly what lines are running over, but I can just tell you, contract and professional services, the ACC consultant is about $67,000 of it. That's the, what's his name, Jerome?
Jerome.
Yeah, Jerome. So then year before was obviously Joel Carter, but so this is running at $67,000, because at the time last year when we budgeted for this one position, it was, the thinking was always, when we get the ACC, when we get Allen, then we won't necessarily need to spend as much on the ACC consultant. That obviously turned out to not quite be the case. So that's why you see an over budget of $67,000 that line item. Now for the 2025 budget, we did budget $50,000 for the ACC consultant to build in, using them more along with Allen. But the over budget for that category, like I said, ACC consultant, $67,000. The HR contract for $51,000. That's another amount that wasn't budgeted at the end of 2020. In 2024, that contract was signed after the whole budgeting, the budget was passed, so it wasn't even on the radar at that point, so it couldn't be budgeted in. But that's what's driving that line item. Just two more lines that we'll talk about on this. CCR mandates, this is quite frankly solely related to legal expenditures. So legal expenditures at the end of November 2025, sitting at $107,000 over budget. So the two biggest line items right now for Sun Valley that is probably the pain points would be hazardous trees and legal expenditures. Those are really the two things that have the real potential to push us over budget, which is why we raised the 2026 budget to $250,000 for hazardous tree expense. That's the first time we've done that, to build that in at that rate. Since we're talking about hazardous trees and regulatory compliance, you'll see this is over budget by, we'll just say $61,000, that's all hazardous trees. $58,000 of that line item is solely related to hazardous trees. Now, the only other number really worth mentioning on the income statement is, of course, Linda's always interested in this number, is that expense to revenue ratio, which just gives you, so like for example, at the end of November 2025, the expense to revenue ratio is 96.3%. That just means for every dollar of revenue, we had 96.3 cents of expenditures. You can think about it like that. So a lower number is better on this. We budget, what do we budget for? We budget for 100%, since it's a balanced budget. but at the end of November 2025, 96.3%. The end of November 2024 is 90%. So you can see, it's worse at the end of November 2024. And related to those main kind of line items that we already highlighted, October of 2025 is 94.9%. But now, the good piece of news, though, like for example, is this month-to-date number for October, like month-to-date operating expenditures, the increase going from October to November is less than what it was in the prior year. So like, for example, so basically when John came on board, you could say we kind of instituted a semi-austerity sort of measures, on departmental spending to try to rein in some of these expenditures.
It's the Grinch.
And this is
Necessary.
yeah, they certainly are. Like I was going to point out, you can see this in a sense. This is probably a little more interesting for Linda, so I'm saying this for Linda's benefit. But like you can kind of see this in a sense through those expense to revenue ratios. So like for example, from October 2025 to November 2025, it was 96.3%, and then in October it was 94.9%. So the expense to revenue ratio went up 1.4%, versus October 2024 to November 2024, it went up 4.9%. So you can see the expenses went up October to as a ratio of revenues from October 2024 to November 2024 went up a lot more than it did from October 2025 to November 2025, which shows that the austerity measures are working. They're taking hold.
They're taking their toll.
What's that?
They're taking their toll.
Yes.
They're taking hold.
Oh, I said they're taking hold. Yes.
They are taking hold, and some people could say they're taking a toll. So both are true. This next statement, I'm not going to get into this statement very much because we've gotten into this statement every single month that we talk about, but this is just the capital reserve funding sheet. It just shows you all the getting cash, all the cash going out the door, or all the cash coming in for dues. And the big thing really to focus on is that obligated expenses for SURF 1.2 million, we'll say rounded. And then you can turn to anytime that you want to, you can turn to the open capital project report, and here's SURF, and here's that same number, that 1.2 million, so to speak. And it's just that, all that is just as I said before, just a function of all the open projects and all the budget left to spend on that, so to speak. But this is just, this report does come in handy like during budget time because it's a very important number to know because then I started looking at all the dues coming in, then everything that's obligated, how much money do we have to work with? In this case, it's projecting to the end of December 2025, 2.7 million for SURF. That's why that number becomes important. But, and it's just the same pattern for every single one of these funds. The UDR fund, like for example, which is sitting at, we'll say 293,000 at the end of November 2025. So at the end of November 2024 is 256,000. And like I said, the thing with the UDR, this is just a function of the board's approving of expenditures to come out of UDR. And UDR stands for, I guess that's the only fund really worth kind of talking about. SURF rows, obviously those are self-explanatory, but UDR stands for undesignated reserve. So since we're talking about 2025, well, now that we're into 2026, anyone who has not paid their 2025 dues in any month in 2025 who pays it in 2026, the operating portion of the 2025 dues and before that goes into the UDR fund. That's what that is. So just keep it simple. If dues were $100 and $50 was operations, $50 was capital. Now that we're in January, if they owe December 2025 dues, if they pay that in January in this scenario, then the $50 for the operating portion of it goes into undesignated reserve. The other $50 goes into the appropriate capital fund where it belongs. And then it builds up money, and then the board can approve expenditures to come out of it, just like matter of fact, the board basically has to approve expenditures coming out of this. It's just like they do surf roads and mailboxes. Okay, the last segment we'll talk about real quick, we'll talk about the income. This is just the income statement. Again, you're just seeing it on a departmental level, basically what contributes to that. We already talked about the $168,411 in operating expenditure, in surplus income, I should say. But this is just giving you a breakdown, basically, of every single department that contributed to that number of one form or another. Joanne already did basically a good primer on golf. But as you can see, golf, right here, they had $1.379 million in revenue at the end of November 2025, the end of at the end of November 2024, it was 1.39 million. So I mean, so the revenue is down, by about 20,000 from year over year. It's around 18,000 something or other. So the revenue is slightly down from the prior year. The expenditures obviously, are higher just because they're going to be higher anyways in terms of with especially labor costs and so on and so forth. But you can see the bottom line for the net income for golf. Approximately 177,000 rounded at the end of November 2024 is 260,000. So you can see that there is a difference, in terms of with golf year over year. And of course, Joanne has already given you like a preview of January numbers for golf. But I would say for the most part, that's just kind of quickly summarize. I guess the biggest thing for Sun Valley would be hazardous trees. That's the biggest thing. Hazardous trees, legal expenditures, those sorts of things.
So we do anticipate that there's going to be an operational shortfall for 2025. The action item that arises from that is to consider whether the board wants to authorize the use of additional funds from UDR to cover some of the overage in one of the categories of expense that Joel's highlighted, either legal expenses or hazardous trees, in order to address that shortfall. In December, we see a difference between golf was down by about 18,000 and expenses are over by about 18,000. So that was a significant impact on the overall ability of operations to pay for itself based on our budget. The good news is that while we're highlighting low operating cash on the balance sheet that we start out our financial statements with, UDR actually has about 16,000 additional dollars at the end of November of 2025 than it did in the previous year. So that is a place we can viably look to address the shortfall that's going to occur in 2025. And we won't know the details of that until all the invoices are in for December.
When do you think that'll be?
Well, we just went over November statements, so next month we'll have the first shot at December, but until we're along, even when we share these financial statements, there are additional changes that happen after the fact. So the final fee calculation of where the budget ended up won't come for some time, but next month we will have the initial look at the December statements, and we expect to see a shortfall. And we can choose whether to take funding out of UDR and put it into operations or not, because that low cash number is going to start to rise as we go through this year. And we do have, as Joel noted, a better handle on the control of spending, although after asking managers not to order things in October, November, December, there was kind of a spurt of spending as we hit January. Just as you would experience when you're managing your personal finances, right? When you don't do the Costco run for a month or two and you use up all your residuals, suddenly your next trip out to Costco costs you a little bit more than usual. But that is something that we are going to need to discuss next month. And I would suggest that at the first meeting of March, just as we did today, we'll have our presentation, we'll share the numbers with you, and then at the second meeting, we can bring back a more formal motion so that that reflects the board's direction from the first meeting discussion around the potential shortfall. Are there any questions about that? I know it's a sobering thought to think that we didn't hit our budget, but it's not a huge number and it's happened before.
Yeah, it has, that's all I was gonna say, it's happened before, and we've had to take from UDR.
Daniel?
I'm just curious, you said legal was you took a big hit on legal. Are we, looking forward, are we expecting that to dip quite a bit, or are we anticipating it to stay steady?
The 2026 budget includes additional funding for legal. We do need to spend in that category to react to the changes in legislation that Washington State has enacted. And so if anything, we're probably going to see our legal expenses rise for consulting in those areas. And a lot of legal expenses are simply tied to things that happen and issues that are brought forward to the association which we have to address. So some of it is out of our control. But the good news about the 2026 budget is that it has much more realistic numbers to start out with in categories where if you look back, every year we exceed our budget for legal expenses, every single year. Every single year we spend way more on trees than we anticipated. And that's a pattern which was finally and appropriately addressed for the 2026 budgeting cycle that happened last year. So that's very positive. Of course, it did require that most of the dues increase be funneled into operations, but that adjustment now is in place, and future years can have a more equitable distribution of revenues. So hopefully that's helpful.
Any other questions? Linda?
I got a couple comments. So,
Is it only questions?
no, well, actually, no, I have a couple of comments that has to do with the budget. You know, Joel has that we have 168,411 at the end of November. If you take out, that's why I asked the question of him last time, the 73,068 that we're over with the extra we're collecting, we would have only $95,343 left at the end of the year. Tied to that, I have a question. When I go look on page 18 and 19, especially it's only on page 18, there's times where we went over budget on things, and they're in yellow, and there's not many of them, but there's two of them, or there's I understand with a couple of them, if it's just a little amount, it says that this amount will be taken out of operations. I'm assuming those have been taken, but when we have like 3,000, the one is like 3,000 over, almost 4,000, and another one for 2, instead of booking it to the operations, we do change orders and then you take it out of capital where you've got more money. Yeah. You know, you've got over $6,500 that has been put back into operations that really should be taken out. The way I've always done it here is that they do change orders before they pay those overages, and they do it out of our capital accounts that we have a little bit better, tighter rein on than throwing it into ops when it looks like we're struggling with that anyway. You know, I can see there's one in here for like I think it's $56. I can see putting that overage there. There's one overage I don't understand that's in the long-term leases. And I think those should be almost done because it looks like they're all from 2020 and they're 5-year leases, I think.
Yeah, they are.
But there's, like I say, there's a couple of things that the overages, it would make sense even if you paid them and at least brought forward change orders to these particular capital projects, you wouldn't be taking $6,500 out of ops, which clearly we haven't got that money to take all the time, and we'd be much better off doing the change orders and taking it out of our capital funds. That's all I got.
Yeah, and that's actually why I initially leave it like that, just in case, like, for example, the computer purchases, the $3,000 one.
Yeah, and I was
Just in
surprised
case
that
they
that was
do
so
that.
much over, because I thought we had that really geared down to be the numbers that, so I was surprised to see the 3,000 overage in that, and that's a just recent one.
I think that was a server purchase or something.
There were emails that were disregarded during the year regarding necessary expense for the firewalls. The firewalls that were previously installed required each firewall, which we have one at all of our locations, requires a new software license, and they get renewed every 3 years. So the previous general manager did not absorb that from the messages that were sent to him, and he neglected to include that in the budget, which meant that he used the leftover, what he perceived as leftover money, to purchase the projector and screen upstairs, which get used 3 times a year. I would not have made that choice, but it was based on the information that he had, he made that choice. But we still had to increase the licenses, and in fact, it was cheaper for us to buy new hardware that doesn't have a need to renew software licenses every 3 years. So we moved that expense, and I decided to buy the additional hardware. And I wouldn't have charged that project, but at the time it seemed like there was a reserve, and it was because of the way that the computers were purchased. They were purchased using credit cards because they were purchased, of course, online. And the whole thing was kind of a disaster. But it's in the greater scheme of things, when we're talking about a $6 million operational budget, to be nickeling and diming around $3,900 seems a little.
Like I say, it's like, I think there's a policy somewhere about, it's like when there are overages, and unless you change that, it says that you'll do a change order for them if they're capital requests. That's all. If you want, I'll be happy to go back and look, but it's the way we've always done things in the past.
Yeah, and this is the time of year when we reckon things up and even them out, so that those capital requests may be coming your way.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
By the way, since these are the November statements, both of those lot sales obviously are
Yeah, are in there.
in the statements, yeah. So there's a line on the consolidated income statement that shows gain on lot sales, that you can see. And the cash, obviously the proceeds for it, went into the density reduction fund according to the policy. And that's literally the main change of that density reduction fund is.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could use, and we can't, but it would be nice if you could use when the lot sales, but it all goes into density reduction now.
Yeah.
And there's not that much we're doing with that anymore. I don't know if it's something they think about, modifying to some extent to where you can move money if you need to over in.
Yeah, well,
I know, is it robbing Peter to pay Paul? I don't know.
I don't know either, but I do know that the density reduction program, when it was conceived, felt like a really good thing. More green space means a nicer living environment, and we took lots that were difficult to build on, and we heard earlier the fallout that occurs, right? Unfortunately, the unintended consequence was a significant magnification of our tree problem.
Yeah.
Because all of those lots that were included in density reduction are by their very nature adjacent to other homes. They're all wooded, and now those trees are dying, and we have to take them down so they don't cause damage to people or property. And that's behind our geometric increase in spending on the removal of hazardous trees.
And we also lose the revenue from the lots if they're sold and they're developed, or even if somebody's holding them as a vacant lot.
Yeah, so the long-term consequences of that program are just being realized right now.
they were talked about, but I think that, you know, you begin to see all of that to where maybe, is there a way that we can somehow access some of this money now by the board moving things? I know when we had the transfer fee, and we went through that before it was done away with, it was like there was part of that policy that the board could move money from, I think it was from that transfer fee holding thing, but it was only into surf, I believe. I don't believe it was for roads. I'd have to go back and look, but it's like, you know, there's things that we've done that it's like, you don't realize that. I don't know if there's a way that we can fix some of that to help us out with ops and stuff like that, but.
Or use those funds for tree removal on those lots that we purchased back that we have somehow, but good conversation. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, thank you, Joel.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. We'll move on to committee reports. Start out with Daniel, our ACC.
Yeah, we're starting to pick up a little bit, some more activity in the ACC. And also, I've been meeting with the architectural inspector and Alan, our compliance manager, and Joanne about some other issues, and we've got a proposal that we've put in front of the board today. Mainly clarifications, nothing earth-shattering like last year. But one of the ongoing conversations I've been having, and that's why I invited Terry over, because he had those problems last year, the hydraulic breakers. I mean, I can't imagine what he lived through for 2 months like that. I don't have solutions at this point, but at this point, that isn't even really regulated by us. So maybe it's a conversation I can have with you too, Keith. Maybe you have some ideas about this, but I really think that kind of thing needs to be regulated a little bit more, because a lot of the lots that are being built now are very difficult lots. And I would not want to be living next to a construction site like that. That's your whole summer.
Yeah.
The ski slope house.
Yeah.
8
So
to 6.
we're talking about that, and that's something that I'd like to sort of, it may not be something that's actually a change in policy, maybe it's something that is just part of, you know, when they bring in the new construction, allow for new construction, this is just part of the process, and tell them what can and can't be done, maybe the hours limit, maybe they limit the hours a little bit. There are noise, low noise hydraulic breakers. So there are some solutions out there, but I think we need to formulate something.
Dynamite, just one big boost.
Just one big bill and it's all over with.
But you still gotta get the holes.
We'll just bring back dynamite.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, that might be a good use of that density reduction fund. If a lot is brought forward by a builder and it is in a location that is extremely close to other houses, and we understand that the underlying geology makes it challenging, perhaps we say to the builder, you're not building there, but we'll take that lot back from you and turn it into green space.
Can we do eminent domain and do it?
Well, it's, you know, obviously quite situational, but like once that project was approved, there was nothing we could do to help those residents.
And also,
Yeah.
the changes we made last year with the space between houses may have helped them a bit on that.
Yeah.
So we're
Trying.
trying to make it easier for these guys. I mean, I can't even imagine 2 months. I couldn't take the 5 minutes he was sharing.
Imagine a whole hot summer for the ski slope house. You know, it's like this guy took down
Yeah.
half of the hill to put that house in.
And there's
If any of
dust.
you been up there.
Dust too.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say, I've seen blasting devices where you drill a half-inch hole into a rock, maybe 18 inches, 24 inches, and slide a tube down there, and an electric charger goes to it. It does make a pop, but it's not dynamite. It does a great job of breaking rock.
If it could be done faster, that'd be better.
Faster fire.
Oh, it would definitely be faster, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Do you have anything else, Daniel?
That's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Document review?
We're having our first meeting, we got all of our people approved at the last board meeting. We're having our first meeting next week on Wednesday. We're gonna start taking a look at WUCIOA and what it kind of looks like for how do we go about implementing and putting it in. Most of the community doesn't know much about WUCIOA, but it's like I can read a document and think that I've picked up everything that's relevant in it, and I look again and I go, oh, wow, this is in here. And it's like, you can look at them, and every time you look, you'll see something else that's applicable. And I've just like some eyes on it, and we've only got a few that apply to us this year. So I'd like to have them start taking a look at that and see what it looks like. And how do our, like our bylaws, I know that we're gonna have legal look into it and stuff, but I'd like them to be ready to look at it too and see, how do you modify some of this stuff, and also see where some of our bylaws already apply to the changes that WUCIOA is looking for. And show them that, to explain that some of this stuff we've already done, so we're ahead of the game. So that's what I want them to do. So that's what we're gonna do, and I'll have something more next month.
Okay. Finance? Jean?
Yeah, we just, our last meeting, we just had an introductory meeting, the first time we had a full complement of people where we could have a meeting. So it was introductory. Joanne presented some financials, which is very helpful for people to sort of get an idea of what things look like and start putting them together. And had a little discussion, and then really that was about it. And then this next time we'll start into capital requests and reviewing them and voting on recommendations.
Very good. Anything in long-range planning? No meetings this month, right? Timey?
We didn't have a meeting this month. We did have 3 more people apply over the last few days, so I'll be bringing those names forward. Our next meeting, we had gone through a lot of questions that we were looking at, and Joanne was going to refine them. So we're going to be looking at what she's going to bring back, and also adding a couple that we've been discussing over the last little bit. So we'll have that meeting in March.
Very good, thank you. Nominations and elections, we're gonna read that for Rob?
I am gonna read that.
Thank you.
So, from Rob Wrights to the board, the SBCA Nominations and Elections Committee has not yet met in 2026. The committee's first meeting of the year is scheduled for Monday, February 23rd at 6:30 p.m. The committee has been reset to comply with the January 1, 2026 WUCIOA requirements. We are happy to have Linda Bradley and Joe Adams be joining the committee as our 2 directors. As part of this reset, the committee will select and confirm the 2026 chair and secretary. During the February 23rd meeting, the committee also plans to briefly discuss upcoming tasks and timelines related to the 2026 annual general meeting AGM cycle. Respectfully, Rob Gibbs.
Thank you, Linda. Tom, safety?
We're still kind of in a hole. I'm not getting responses to emails until we find a place to meet that meets the requirements. I don't know what we're gonna do.
Well-lit hole?
For safety.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's a.
All right, so you're still working your way around it?
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you, sir. All right, continuing business is, we have any appointments tonight? Was committee business? Anybody? I don't think we do have any appointments tonight. Do we?
I don't think so.
What's
We
that?
have 3.
Yeah, I don't believe so
Oh,
either.
timing?
You're gonna bring it in March, right?
Well, I need to bring them to the board first before I can have them come to our March meeting. I have 3 people that
Vetted?
Yes, they've all been vetted.
Oh, so you're bringing appointments forward tonight?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay. 3 of them, I have Forrest Cat, Brad Edwards,
hang on.
and
Forrest. Brad
Edwards,
Edwards,
and David Gustafson. Gustafson.
say it one more time again.
Gustafson, Gustafson.
Oh, Gustafson.
Yeah, that brings us to 10 members of a possible 11, so we are basically full.
Have these been vetted? Joanne?
Yes, I confirmed
Yes,
it.
Tommy said they've been vetted.
Okay, very good. All right, so we have appointments for the Long Range Planning Committee tonight. Forrest Cat, David Gessenson, and Brad Edwards. All in favor?
Aye.
Two yeses.
Okay, that's unanimous. Do you have any other appointments tonight? All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to the discussion about in-person versus Zoom meetings. Joanne?
So in 2024, the board voted to have a practice where all meetings were made available for community participation via Zoom. We do this using a component of Zoom called the webinar, which allows us to have two types of participants. A panelist, which is an appointed member either of the committee or an elected member of the board. And then we also have attendees who can hear and see everything that's going on. They can raise their hands, they can see chat, but they have to be recognized by the chair before they are allowed to speak in the meeting, which is reflective of our Robert's Rules of Order. This webinar functionality is expensive, and we have the ability to hold one webinar at a time in our SVCA account.
Joanne, don't we do that with ACC?
Yes, all the meetings are webinars.
Okay.
Okay? Every meeting we hold or record, we hold as a webinar. Because that webinar capability is tied to our account, it's not feasible for us to give a committee chair or someone else the ability to log into our account to start a webinar. So by having the board direct us to use Zoom in that way, it mandates that there be a staff person available to log into the account and set it up. Doing a Zoom meeting is easier to do for a staff person if they don't have to be present in the physical setting, because most of our meetings happen after hours. And for a staff member, if they have to be physically present at a meeting that occurs after hours, they can't come in at their normal 8 or 8:30 start time. They then have to delay. They're coming in until noon so that they can extend their schedule, because it's illegal actually to ask people to do split shifts. That causes coverage problems for administration, because we're open and people come in at noon, and our staff also in the middle of the day want to take their meal break, which is also the law. If you work an 8-hour shift, your meal break has to occur in the middle of that shift. You can't, force them to take it early in the morning or late in the afternoon. And we wouldn't want to do that anyway, right? So when we require staff to be in person at the meeting, it causes scheduling challenges that affect our ability to do customer service. Also, the whole purpose of administrative staff is to support departments and work with other people. We're the coordinators and the supporters. And if we're spending our hours at the end of the day when everyone else goes home, we're not coordinating anything, right? So it's challenging to see so many hours wasted of staff when we have to do that, waiting around for a meeting to start. Which is why I have always advocated for the committees to meet virtually, because it solves the staffing problem, it solves the participation of the members problem, and it gives us a recorded record. I do understand that committees like to meet in person. It's great to see your colleagues face to face. Some activities go better that way. But it comes at a significant cost on staff. And so my request is that the committee chairs really consider whether they have to meet in person. And if they decide that they do, then they can take that up with the president and make their case, or however we want to set it up. But the preference is for committees to meet virtually. And that's the message I want to share with you all.
Okay, if we have any questions on this?
So meeting virtually, then who's still setting it up? Is it the committee chair setting it up, or how does that? Or is it like what we did, where you were still involved, Joanna, and you set it up?
Yeah, a staff member must attend the meeting.
Okay,
But if a person logs in from home for a 2-hour meeting, that's better. That's easier to accommodate than if
Yeah, it makes sense.
they have to stay physically here and everything has to shift.
Yeah, I've got one, my first meeting,
Linda?
my first meeting next week is here because of a handout that I have for everybody to look at. But normally, last year, we just worked online from at home.
So I have a question for you. So where would the staff member be if the meeting was held in the evenings, right? People work and can't have a meeting during the day. Is a staff member required to set this up from their home or something?
Yes.
So how is that? Is that any different? You're still getting paid for that time, right?
They are, but it's not as burdensome as physically having to sit here for all those extra hours at the end of
But
the
we can
shift.
ask them to do that?
Yeah, people have been willing to do it. No one was forced to.
Probably prefer to do that.
They prefer to do that because then they can go home and pick up their kids or whatever and then have their dinner, be with their partner and then do their meeting.
So their requirement is only they don't have to sit there and actually pay attention to the meeting?
answer?
It
I'm just checking.
depends. Yeah, like I have to be, I attend the long-range planning meetings, I attend the finance committee meetings, I attend the board meetings. The in-person meeting is much more difficult to run as a single person. Some of you who were on the board in 2024 when I was doing that by myself, and in 2023 when I was doing that literally by myself, saw how difficult it was. We had sound issues, I was getting up and running into the back of the room to try and adjust the technology, it was super challenging. So if we have an in-person meeting, somebody needs to be here to set up the equipment, check the sound, do all that stuff, and it's almost difficult for them to participate. If I'm doing it from my desk, it's a no-brainer. It takes no attention or time.
I do have a question. So as far as what Kyle goes, isn't it like they said that you don't have to have it recorded for committee meetings though? Like you don't have to have a video recording, is that correct? Just in our bylaws, is that?
It is not a legal requirement,
Right.
but it's the board directed in 2023 that all meetings would be made available for virtual participation to encourage the participation of members in those meetings. Now, we have one person logged in tonight, remotely. Many committee meetings happen and no one logs in. But that was the direction. So the board could choose to change that direction.
Just putting all the options on the table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's good, it's good, because that's actually one of the things we talked about, Gene and us, actually, we talked about that, the requirement, we put the onus on ourselves
Mhm.
for this burden, and is that something we might want to consider changing? The issue came up that we thought it would be transparency, everyone will think, oh, it's a transparency issue, but the reality is it's a financial issue, it's a short staffing issue. It is a big burden on the staff to try to do this. And I do know, like Sean and Joanne, I was here when you were doing all those meetings by yourself, and then, Spencer has to come in late,
Yeah.
and those kind of things. It does make a difference, and now that the office is short-staffed in either the morning of the meeting, like this morning, or tomorrow,
Right.
because he's here for 2 hours or 4 hours if the meeting goes that long.
Yeah.
So it does make it difficult. But that was my first question I had is, would it be any different if they were at home and it's a 4-hour meeting? There's still that issue, I think. I'm guessing, I don't know, that's more ops, but, you still have someone that's are they getting time and a half, are they getting comp time in the morning, they don't have to show up till noon, is that still gonna be an issue?
Yeah, the board meeting is a very different thing.
Yeah,
Right, I don't think we want to contemplate making.
no, yeah,
Right.
the board meetings want to stay the same, yes.
But committee meetings tend to be an hour or two at most. And it is not, staff in the past has shared with me that it's not burdensome for them to log in from home. They much prefer it than having to stay here. And the amount of variation that puts on their schedule is smaller. either they leave early and enjoy the afternoon and then log on later, or they come in a little bit later, but not as late as they would have to if they were here in person. So from a staffing perspective, it's easier to accommodate the recording and management of meetings if you do it from home.
I remember all our ACC meetings back before were all done from the office over there. I'm sorry, Gene and then Tom.
So this
I
sort
have
of,
a question when you have a second too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have your hands up?
I've had it up for a while. It's okay.
All right, we'll get to you in 1 sec. Go ahead.
so I just want to sort of make sure I understand. So if you can do it from home, I know that because you did it. But is it still that can I do it? Can I not say, okay, Joe, you don't have to come, I'll just do my committee meeting? And is there a way, or is that still that I'm logging into something that is owned by Sudden Valley and I shouldn't be logging into? Or,
Right, every webinar must be managed by a staff person.
okay, so even if you're home, it's not like I could do it, you still have, somebody, a staff person still has to do it.
Right, and that's because the board gave the direction that we want to give members the opportunity to participate in the meeting, so you need the webinar for that. If you just want to do a virtual meeting, anybody on the planet can download a free copy of Zoom and run a meeting and record it. And then you could download the recording and send it to us, and then that would cover the recording and the virtual meeting thing, but it wouldn't allow for people to participate in the same way. The other challenge about this is that this year, part of the WUCIOA regulation says that we have to give 14 days notice for a meeting or have an annual schedule. And we must also provide instructions for how people will participate in the meetings. If they're all over the map, if we're doing them in different ways, that becomes much more complicated. In order to be compliant, we developed a one-page set of instructions, which was supposed to be printed in the views, and it came out horrible. It's not very
that
legible,
green
that
thing.
stupid green thing. So we're redoing the colors, but it's posted on the website as well, and we have handouts to give people. So it's all about access, right? That's a big part of the change in the Kiowa legislation for this year. And so having all these different things to keep track of is complicated for members. And it's complicated for staff, but I mean, we can handle it, it's just, it gets crazy.
Timey, I thought wanted to speak,
Yeah,
don't
we'll
forget.
go Tom and then Tony,
Yeah.
just as I saw him.
I didn't see that.
Last year, as far as the safety committee went, we never had a person log in, and we never had a person show up in person. And I'm just wondering, I know it would have to be architectural control, obviously has to have a link for members, because people are questioning their applications. But how many of these committees are actually getting people logging in or showing up for a meeting? You know, are we just?
Yeah, I just know the board of the ACC does.
Do you mean, when you say nobody logged in, you mean members?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm just saying, we're trying to follow the direction that the board set in
Right.
23.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we're just throwing money away.
Yeah.
You know, I know it would be great if numbers would show up, but typically it doesn't seem to happen.
So, yeah, so if we get rid of the policy that we mandated on ourselves to record the meetings and then just require, you could have your meeting in a public space here or the library or something like that, just people would have to attend if they wanted to take part in the meeting. So that's something that, why we're discussing it tonight, so hopefully the next meeting we come back to and discuss it even more or figure out what we want to do to resolve the issue.
Timey, want to get Timey to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you so much. I'm sorry, because I don't have a screen time, go ahead.
The love, guys. I'm feeling forgotten. I can't poke you when I'm from here. Got my little hand. Yeah, well, you're kind of saying the same things that I wanted to say in that I don't see members logging in to the committee meetings. I think we can do personal Zoom links for any member that wants to participate, and we can set that up and they can participate from home if they're traveling like I am or whatever. But members can always come if they're interested and listen to any meeting. And I know I sat in, like as an example, long range planning, I sat in on a couple And here and there, someone came in and sat in. So it's accessible. If people know, if you want to hear what's going on, come on down. We provide minutes. I don't see why we have to have staff and why we have to have webinars. It's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else? Any additional comments? All right, you gonna be discussing this then tonight? All right, very good, thank you. Imagine we need to follow up on that, so we get that back on the agenda.
So we'll table this to the next meeting?
Yeah, there might be a couple meetings, but yes. All right, moving on next, continuing business is security proposals, discussions, and the next steps to move forward. That may also, we'll see what this actually goes.
Great. So I wrote a little memo to help organize the discussion. And the purpose of this discussion is to get a response from directors to the materials that were distributed at the January 8th meeting. So the background on this, information regarding security's role at SVCA was given to the board on January 8th. And 4 responses to a request for proposal were also shared with the board at that time. SVCA spends a significant amount on security every year. Our current management systems require security to provide eyes and ears in the field around the clock. While our current provider has delivered reliable service for several years, there has been a decline in quality over the past year. Additionally, there is a general perception amongst members that maintaining an observe and report force does not provide enough value to offset the high cost of the service. The questions that need to be addressed are, will a competitor provide any better service than our current provider? Can SVCA afford to spend more on security to get better service? What other value could security provide beyond observe and report? And considering rising costs, should SVCA explore whether it's feasible to remove the requirement for providing 24/7, 365 security? So the approach that I propose for the discussion to kind of keep it within bounds here is that we start with just answering anybody's questions on the information that was provided, and then ask directors to make a statement about the current status of security and what they see as their preferred next steps. And then after we hear what people would like to do as next steps, perhaps voting to see what action should be undertaken. And really there are 3 things, and this is not an either or. All of these the actions that I've written down here are feasible to be done simultaneously. The first one that I've identified is keep working with the current vendor and continue to address the issues. Consider moving to another vendor or potentially establish a task force to meet with them and to have discussions. Work with the SVCA attorney to develop a plan to amend the restrictive covenants to remove the requirement for 24/7 security.
All right, so opening this up to questions and comments. You guys all have time to review the proposals. We looked those over. There was one company that offered,
Revised pricing.
yeah, did you send that to the entire board? You did, so that one just came out, right? So, yeah.
I
that's the
haven't
one
seen
that-
anything.
It
just came out this afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't
it was-
see anything when I looked before I came.
Yeah, there was a new one that came out.
Yes,
Did see it.
It's
What was
Wednesday,
the-
yesterday.
Joanne, what did the attorney say as far as how hard it would be to actually eliminate the need for security?
I did ask Richard and he sent me a response. It's important to know that Washington law doesn't have anything to say about changing restrictive covenants. Instead, the process and the voting threshold is governed by the covenants themselves. As the board knows, every division within Sudden Valley has its own set of restrictive covenants. There are 39. but the language regarding amendments is the same for every division. An amendment to the restrictive covenants requires a majority of the owners in that division to approve the amendment. Each division would need to vote to amend the restrictive covenants for that particular division. The amendment to be voted upon would be the same in every division, and it would just have to eliminate a single sentence that's in there, and I quoted that in my earlier memo so you all understand. Any division that votes to approve the change only affects that particular division. So in conceptualizing this, I thought we should present it to the community to say, it's up to the individual divisions. We need 50% plus one, which is a majority, of the owners in that division. So if there's 500 lots in a division, we would need 251 people to vote yes in order to effect the change. If any division eliminated security, my proposal would be that they were no longer charged in their dues for the provision of security, and that security would no longer patrol or respond to calls from that division. In that way, all the divisions would be incentivized to make the change simultaneously, since if any division didn't approve it, they would then have to bear the entire cost of the 24/7 security, which meant their dues could go up astronomically. And Richard, the rest of his response is about that. He thinks SVCA is on solid ground to charge a higher amount because it would be an equitable basis. This division doesn't get the service, they're not charged for it. This division does get the service, they are charged for it. So obviously if we structure it in that way, there would be a significant motivation for people to approve it, because if they didn't, they might be stuck holding the bag for the entire cost.
So it would require like an enormous awareness campaign, because you want everybody in our community to be aware of why it's important we're all in alignment with each other, because one or two, this could very easily go south, right?
Yeah.
Because few divisions have voted, no, we want to keep security, we don't want to get rid of it, they're just.
How many divisions do we have? 38?
39.
39, okay, I knew I was close.
So I would be curious how many houses are in each division, and then look at our total annual votes that we get. It's not that many, right? That's always been a problem.
There's not
I've
even
always said.
half, there's not even half.
Yeah, less than half.
Well, there would be a cost,
That's
because we
great.
could send registered mail to require a response. We obviously would do a campaign.
You can do a call, yeah. or
Yeah,
something.
we can call people. But the idea is that it is absolutely feasible, and there is a good incentive to do it. Think about it this way. If we were able to make the change, yes, it would be a lot of effort, and it would be costly in the year that we did it. However,
Much, yeah.
in 3 years of no security, we would save more than $1 million. 3 years is not a long time, and $1 million is a lot of money. So,
Yes, we'll go around, Linda, and then,
So I've been reading the restrictive covenants, and there's 2 ways in there that you, and I don't know which one is which. It says on one hand, it just takes a vote of the membership to do a revision, like if we would put that sentence, what we want to take out, we'd have it voted on at an AGM. The other section says that there has to be a document that's signed by all the owners. But there's 2 different things, and it's like, I don't know which one, are you supposed to pick which one you want to do?
I asked Richard specifically, and that was his response. It's a vote of the members, it has to be a majority of the owners in the division, and that's effective.
Can't it just be in the association?
No.
Since we,
That's what he said. He said no. It is by division, and that's that. I mean, there was no room in it, because each deed is in a plat. Each plat has its own covenant. Each division was a plat.
yeah,
Right, so there could be variation by division, and that's just the way it is.
but I thought that our basic restrictive covenants, tell me if I'm wrong, are indeed in each of these individual divisions, but then they can also have additional covenants in addition to that. I'll go look, I've got a whole bunch of the different, for the different plats.
The covenants are not the same. You are absolutely correct.
You know, but I'm saying the
They vary.
basic ones that have this in it are all the same, and I think that they're found in every single division's,
And Richard confirmed that, like I just read.
yep.
So the process for changing the covenants, amending the covenants is the same for each division, and the sentence requiring security is the same in every division here at Seven
Yep.
Valley. So the change would be exactly the same, but the vote must be calculated at the division level. It could just be a regular vote, because we know where the returns are coming from, but the vote on that particular issue would only be relevant for the division the owner is in.
Wouldn't you have to do a whole bunch of different votes then?
No.
So, I think there's gonna be a survey coming out, right? And before we get into this, do we wanna do a kind of a survey, make sure that the majority of the people understand what's going on and that they're even interested in it, right? Because if you have a bunch of people say, no, I want security, then I think maybe you look, what are the direction we have? And then another discussion would be, can we hire our own personal person and have them as a security going around doing various things? And so instead of the whole security system as a single person, that would do sort of a spotty security on-call thing.
Spotty security on call.
That's kind
Hey,
of,
John, get over there.
I mean, you know, I guess
Yeah, I got
we
you.
had this discussion, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's still, I'm unclear how many calls security actually gets to respond to something, and I don't know what those calls are.
Yeah, we were working on.
So, and whether the community really wants, there's a survey that can be done before we get too into the weeds, whether people actually want it or not, and if people want it, then.
Yeah, so we sent some questions, and then I'll get to you guys. We sent some questions into Joanne actually discussing this, because we did discuss this. Trying to get an idea roughly, what does security actually respond to? And I don't mean this in a bad way to security, I'm sure they're doing their job, but everybody that I've spoken with is, what good is security? All they do is observe and report, but I'm sure there's some people that feel some confidence by knowing there's a number they can call and someone will show up with a flashing light, because that's really all you're gonna get, you know, they'll show up with a flashing light, take a picture and report. So we put a question to Joanne, try to get a rough idea how many calls they get. What is a typical call? You know, is it just loud noise, a dog barking, or what are the calls? And I don't know if you had time yet, because I know it wasn't a lot of time.
Well, we immediately, when we got that feedback from the executive team, immediately went to our security provider and asked them to give us stats. And in the past, they've been able to do that.
Mhm.
This time, we spent 3 days going back and forth with ever more idiotic responses from them. They could not even tell us how many calls they received in a month's time, let alone what day and what time. So their system is so broken, it is irretrievable. However, we respond to the reports that we get, but there is not a one-to-one correspondence between a call and a report. But here's what our daytime security guard, who works here full-time, interacts with staff, is a competent individual. Here's what he has to say, okay? That's Timothy, for those of you who know him. He says 99% of the calls that they get come in the second shift, which is from 3 p.m. to 11. And that's because that's when people are home. And he says summer is way busier than any other time of year. And 99% of the calls that they get are complaints about a neighbor. My neighbor is barbecuing and the smoke is blowing right into my kitchen. My neighbor is blasting music at really inappropriate hours. My neighbor is using construction tools 24/7 and it's driving me crazy. My neighbor's dog chased my cat. My neighbor feeds raccoons. Okay, the whole spectrum is out there. And the way it works is dispatch gets a call, dispatch sends, which is a centralized phone service run by the vendor. They send a text and then they call to follow up with the guard to give them the message. If the guard has to get back in touch with the person, they drive back to the security shack because they don't want generally the community to have their cell phone number. All right, so they could be in gate 5 and they get a call, they turn around, drive back to the guard shack to call back to get more information, because sometimes people want to talk to the guard. They want like a little recon or something, right? They don't want to make a complaint, they just want the guard to call them. And so he said most of the evening shift is exactly that, driving around, confirming or not confirming that the neighbor is doing something. And he said, and this is again anecdotal, but he's worked here now for 3 years, he said the complaints, most of the time we can't confirm them. The music has been turned down, the dog is in the yard, whatever, right? And then summer is totally different because we have a lot of people in compact places. Security spends 75% of their time in the summer at AMP Beach and the marina, because that's where all the people are. And they tell people to move along who are improperly parked. They tell people to simmer down who are, getting a little rowdy and annoying others. And their function becomes much more apparent to the community and much more necessary. The other thing that security does maybe 6 or 8 times a year is they pass a call on to emergency services or first responders. This doesn't even happen every month, but it does happen. The other times that security is very important is when there's a storm or snow. Because if we have trees coming across the road, security will place cones, they'll warn drivers away from the areas, and they'll immediately alert maintenance, who usually has somebody on call, or several people live close and they just come out and they address the problem. So security's function is important for keeping the community safe in some instances, but most of the time they're just getting calls about neighbor complaints. And that's actually the problem with all first responders, isn't it? Hopefully we don't have fires very frequently, but we still need to have firemen available 24/7. Right. The only thing about our security people is they're not first responders, right? And saying that we don't want 24/7, 365 security doesn't mean we'll have no security. It just means that we'll select the times and the way we want to implement security, and that would be a reduced budget.
Exactly. All right, Linda, and then we'll go.
Just so you all know, when I first moved here, we had our own security people here. And it was like 2 or 3 people, that you had different, you had somebody that was their chief, whatever. And then you had, I think, 2 or 3 others, but with a budget of, let's say, $350,000 ballpark. You probably could find, and especially if you decide that we don't need the 20, let's discuss what 365 and 24/7 means, you could do that. It's just, we did it because we got to the point of where we had somebody that was showing favoritism to, yes, pick on some people, but not on others, so then we decided to outsource it, and that's how it's ended up outsourced. But at one time, we even had, the strangest thing, we used to have off-duty sheriff's deputies that would ride with our guards and patrol. They weren't paid as much as they are, so I'm saying we've got all sorts of bizarre stuff.
To be clear, we can't afford the insurance to maintain a private security force. There is no way. We don't have a license for that. And we would need to get a license, it would be costly, and we don't have insurance for that. We could have field inspectors, and we could have a reduced contract with a third-party security provider to patrol the marina and AMP Beach during the summer months. We could have an on-call arrangement where we call people in if we're having a blizzard or a flood or something else. But To think that we could replicate security in this time of, high risk, I don't think that's feasible because of insurance. With all the goodwill in the world, that cost would be just prohibitive.
Okay,
We'll go Lori and then Tommy.
it's gonna start out like.
Joe has his hand up, sorry, and then me, sorry.
Yes, okay.
Because I think, other than Timmy and us two, we remember our in-house security. And they were more than just security. I mean, more than just like patrol. They were an active, hands-on, like if you had to park your car down on like Rockland Boulevard because it snowed, they would drive you to your house. They would pull, they were active in the community, in working with the community. They weren't just like security. And I think over the years since we've had private firms, I know I've only had to call them once. It took me over 10 minutes to get anybody, calling twice, to get anybody dispatched to open. And it was because there was suspicious people down here lurking around and fiddling with the door to barn 6. And I called. It was at night. And it took, nobody even showed up here for 20 minutes. We came back here and watched the people. We don't know what they were doing, but it didn't look, they were like older teenagers. And it didn't look like they were up to any good. So it's like, we could have just confronted them ourselves. Just as good as security, and we don't want our people to have to do that. But I think a lot of the calls that are saying like the dog barking and things like that, there's many communities in this county, in this state, and in this country that don't have security. If you lived in Bellingham, you wouldn't have security. What do you do when your neighbor has a problem? Probably they're more likely to work it out with their neighbors than to call the police. So maybe if we don't have security concentrating on that, and we just do focus security, like marina patrols, A&P and beach patrols on hot days, and we have some kind of standing arrangement with them for security. And then things that aren't really security related, barking dogs, things like that, maybe we could handle on our own as community members.
Very good. Timing?
Kind of.
Joe's had his hand up longer, I'm gonna let him go first.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand up, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
You're muted.
Thanks, Timmy. I just wanted to say that I think the biggest point of this that I think has been brought up is the 3-year cost savings that this could bring about, especially as we're in a process where we're talking about capital investments and we're talking about needing to borrow money and make these things. I think that the community, I don't think there's a very positive opinion of security at this point. And I think that the community would absolutely potentially see this as a way for us to both make investments in our future while also figuring out ways that we can cut costs where they just don't make sense for our current situation. And at that tune, I mean, $1 million, especially when we think about the cost of building Barn 8 or we think about the cost of building Barn 6, that could potentially save us a special assessment. That could possibly save us like a whole bunch of things that could impact people's dues. And so I think that this would be could be a potentially really positive thing to spin or bring to the residents and the homeowners as a balanced thinking and a way for us to both invest in the future while also thinking about covering expenses and getting rid of costs that don't seem to make sense or can't really be justified. Especially given what you guys are saying and what we're receiving for $1 million in 3 years, that's absolutely ridiculous. That is like a ring camera can do better than that. That's my 2 cents there. So I'll hand over to Tiny
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Joe.
or whoever. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I kind of agreeing with a lot of the sentiments that we have here, and also, Jean brought up a really good point, and it's something that we did talk about. I think that when we do this survey that long range planning is working on, I definitely think that should be 1 or 2 of the questions related to security. It may take 2 questions to really clarify, but explain the situation as succinctly as possible. Knowing that information, would you be interested in, if it's possible to do away with security? And I think getting that initial feedback from the community would be really helpful in deciding how we want to go forward in maybe November for a vote.
Thank you, Tiny. Yeah, oh,
Just one,
okay,
do you wanna go?
go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, I don't want to be voting against the security we have now. It seems like a few of these security firms would be willing to work with us and decide what we need and how we need it. Maybe we should consider what the best security that we could afford could be instead of just getting rid of security entirely. And also, what is a real viable alternative? So we need definite choices here, rather than just saying, let's get rid of that and we'll figure this out later and maybe we'll piecemeal. We need, like the task force idea that you suggested to work with, maybe work with these places. We need to know what we're voting for and what we're voting against, and I don't think that's really clear at this point. And how much are we saving every, how much am I spending every year on security?
$400,000.
How much you, probably $8.45 a month.
$8.45
a month.
Okay, well, the cost of security is above and beyond just the cost of the security firm. This year's budget is, as Joel was saying, $309,000. If you divide that out, you can see what portion of your dues it is.
Plus the tax, right, this year we have Washington.
Plus there's sales tax on that this year, which unfortunately we didn't know at budget time. Plus we maintain 2 vehicles for security to drive around in.
Just one.
2, and we pay a huge amount for the fuel for that vehicle every year. And yeah, so luckily we have an on-staff mechanic in our maintenance department who saves us thousands every year. But he's still a cost, and we pay for parts. It's expensive.
There's a dedicated phone line too, isn't there? And a cell.
No.
Yes, we provide a cell phone. In addition to that, and this is something that I can affect, so I've been taking steps to figure out how much it costs us to keep the guard shack operational. My objective, my goal for this year is to move security into the clubhouse so that we can eliminate the firewall at security for one person, the electric at the guard shack, the water at the guard shack, the gas at the guard shack. The phone at the guard shack costs us, well, you know, for your home, there's a basic fee and then there's usage. So we are paying that basic fee and then they're there for like, half an hour in a shift. So those expenses we are currently paying and we can move those. One of the biggest issues though with security is we can't right now make it what we want it to be because we're required to have a person 24/7, 365. And that takes a huge amount of money, so we can't have better patrols because we're already using all our budget funding to just have somebody here.
Just to fulfill the covenant.
Well, I'm thinking like maybe have them have specific things they look for every month, like, ACC infractions or, whatever it is. But, what we have now, I think a lot of people are not happy with. I've had issues with them, I've had serious issues with neighbors that they didn't do anything about. They didn't get out of the Jeep. They didn't get out of the truck to see what's going on. So it's not perfect, but I just wonder what it could be if we could afford something, so
Lori?
I wanted to do that.
For the records, all my neighbors are perfect, so. But one thing I think we do, if we take this to the community to vote on, I think we need to pledge our commitment to working with the sheriff's department, that if we are no longer have 24/7 security, we need to really press the sheriff's department that we are all taxpayers and we are paying and we are not getting the services that we should be getting, and that if we have no security, we're going to, go back at the sheriff's department and say, hey, you know what? When we call, if a homeowner calls, they're calling you because that's what we are to do now. And I think we have to work with them and give our community members some assurance that we are doing whatever we can, and whatever that is. I'm sure Joanne's probably doing everything she can now, but maybe it's going to take community member support in addition to Joanne. She's one person and one voice, that maybe our community would be more voices and could really help with that, because we can't, no offense to Joanne or anything, but she's not a community, she's the admin at the top of our, and that's who they're talking to, and they're not hearing from the people who are actually paying.
The taxpayer.
Right, so I think we have to kind of do a mind shift to our community members and say, we need your help. And the board's giving you a commitment that we're gonna take an active role, and, maybe we could all have like little,
Community watch.
yeah, like taking responsibility for our neighbors or whatever, and get the word out and do something. I think we've got a pretty good
Yeah, there was,
spread here.
one of the, like, some of their, like, security measures, I was kind of thinking about, but like, lights around the mailboxes, there's been some mailbox break-ins and stuff, or like, some cameras, security cameras maybe where we might not have some. But it'd be a one-time investment, obviously there'd be, monthly to record the cameras, but significantly less than security, I'm assuming,
All right, so one of the things I wanted to get back to was what Jane mentioned, and then hearing the reports, like the hours are pretty much 3 to 11, right? That's like an 8-hour shift. 99% of the calls seem to be ACC related, really compliance, or association compliance rules, dog barking, cars not parked properly, loud music, those types of things. So maybe another thing to consider, and along with what Daniel said, maybe that's another ACC or another compliance officer. I don't want to keep saying ACC, but another compliance officer that could fill that role in an 8-hour shift. So you're not having 3 shifts of someone here 24 hours a day, And you mentioned insurance thing, that they're not security, really. They would just be compliance officers. Like Alan is now, he's a compliance officer. He should be driving around looking for compliance issues during the day and then sending out letters or whatever, and reporting it and keeping record of that. It would be the same thing, 3 to 11 at night, if that's most of the calls. Be the same situation. That's his 8-hour shift. He goes around and responds. If there is an ACC or a compliance issue with our policies or something, then they alert that homeowner who's not in compliance, and then threaten them. You actually can threaten them with a fine, or something like that. Actually take some action. Just something else to think about. And then Tom?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along that same line as well. But as far as security goes, I can anticipate with the increase in the number of STRs, the spring and summer, are probably going to bring in a lot more calls.
Well, this week alone, I've had more than 28 parking violations sent to me by security.
Now I'm thinking more noise, party, too many people.
Yeah.
And then if we did have a compliance officer at nighttime, what kind of a dispatch could we have? How would people contact them?
They work in the office like Alan does, so. I don't know.
There are
I mean,
ways
that's stuff to think about.
Yeah, there are ways to work all of this out, but it's not like we're gonna sit down and in 20 minutes or half an hour and figure it all out. But I think that, what I'm hearing is that we want to ask the community what they think. The survey that's being planned by Long Range Planning, is a great vehicle for that.
You're part of that, right?
Yeah, we may want to, have discussions with some of these vendors that rated highly to see what they think and what options they would suggest for improving security while reducing budget. And then based on what the community says, perhaps changing the covenant so that we have the flexibility to do something that might deliver more value. Is that?
Like just placing security at AM/PM Beach in the summer times or whatever, those types, we'd have those options available to us.
Yeah.
But one thing what we really need to think about, if the community comes back, and like I said, just stuff I'm familiar with, most communities, like, what good are they? And I'm sure some people get benefit out of it, but a lot of times they don't. I was on the phone one night for about 10 minutes on hold while I was watching the construction site being offloaded by some people. So what we really need to think about, if this board decides, yes, let's try to do away with security, come up with another measure, we need to think of a campaign. How are we going to approach the whole community? What would that campaign look like? That's going to be some expense in there. We need to do calling, we need to outreach, maybe go door to door, mailers. And if you think about it, we send out mailers now every year for people to vote. Mm-hmm. We're trying to make it easy by this year, electronic voting. So hopefully that'll grow, right? Every year people start getting familiar with electronic, it's not such a burden. But we send out mailers to everybody now, and we get in, what, 1,000 votes, 1,200 votes, or whatever.
Yeah, about a third of our lots vote, and that sounds bad.
I know, but
It's actually way better than most associations.
It is.
In terms of participation.
I looked it up, and it's so disgusting, I'm like, really, people can't get involved enough to vote, they complain enough, like, you can see enough complaints, but not enough people to vote, so. It is something to think about, there's a lot to take in tonight, that's why I'm surprised you say a vote in the direction, I don't see that happening. Other than the survey, I think we do need to get the community's input on what their thoughts would be. It'd be wonderful if the majority of the community was for this, but we need representation from every division, not just 2 or 3 divisions, you know, we need really to find out what they're looking for. But it would be, the savings would be astronomical, even if we just hired another appliance person, we could still save a couple $100,000 a year easily. So it would be significant.
So just so I'm clear, and because I'm like losing it, for each division, we would need 51%
Yes.
of the
Owners.
owners,
Of
not,
that
so-
division,
so
yeah.
if we only get a third, let's just say we get a third of each division that are actually voting, do you know what percentage, do you get a breakdown on, I guess I should ask.
How many lots are in the division?
No, well, on our AGM, of what percentage of each division voted, do we break that down?
Oh,
I don't think so, I think,
We don't ask for that, so we've never gotten it, but it is,
It's recorded.
it's technologically, like, we would be capable of getting that.
Yeah.
Because we know literally who
Yeah.
votes, because,
Right,
right,
right, it's on the envelope.
yeah.
Because it's gonna be hard.
it is,
It's gonna be hard to enact any change, getting 51%. I would recommend either we, mail or just divide up the community and walk door to door. And
That's what
if
you have to
if
do.
they're not home, stick it in there.
Yeah.
you can't do that, that's against,
Well, it's against for outside solicitors, but it's
you can't solicit,
we're not outside
soliciting.
solicitors. It's for distribution of community information.
Yeah.
I think
but
we
it's
can make an
even for
exception.
Girl Scouts and stuff, you
But
have
Girl
to read the
Scouts,
bylaws.
but Girl Scouts are not
Yeah.
SVCA.
Yeah.
We're acting on, that's like saying that they couldn't come around and tell us that they were gonna pave our street.
Yeah.
I think if it's coming from the community, from SVCA, I don't think we have anything in our bylaws that prevents SVCA from distributing SVCA information door to door.
Right.
Well, you're not sure.
I'll have to read it, but I know
Yeah.
there's
What
something
your
in
survey's
there.
planning on doing
But
now?
we're not solicitors.
Well, about that too, Marie.
To Joanne, she's gonna go through it,
Well, that's not SVCA.
to dial in some more of the questions, but I think there's a few that we wanted to add, and a few we wanted to take out, so. I think we'll probably have a better idea in the next meeting.
All right, any more questions? And then everyone get a chance to look at the last review, or the last proposal we received from what we thought was one of the better,
No,
that was
Yeah.
us.
I didn't see
Wednesday.
anything.
It was Wednesday.
There are only rates.
Yeah, it was yesterday at
for proposals.
4:15 or something.
Yeah, so just to get a chance to look at that, but there's obviously a lot to take in and think about, and then how to make this successful, is whatever way we choose to go. It's either that or we just keep status quo and we spend 300 and, actually it's more now, right? We've got to pay another 9% in tax, sales tax on top of that, 309,000.
Yeah, so it's 309,000 plus 8.8%, that's the tax rate down here.
Yeah.
So that comes out to per month, approximately like $9.45 per property, per month.
Yeah, per month.
Just for the outside.
Yeah,
For-
just for the Pacific Security, not for our.
Not for the
Yeah,
cars,
costs.
not for all the other
Yeah.
cars, yeah.
The new proposal that came in from
Alpha Eagle.
Alpha, which I think was one of they were really low last time. But using our car, it says that prices include the tax. The taxes, these are inclusive, prices, rates are tax inclusive.
Did we verify whether that was Washington?
However, that's what it says on our asterisk, but there's nothing asterished.
Good.
So the Eagle,
Okay, hold on, Tom had his hand.
Plus they're $30,000 cheaper for basically the same service we're getting now.
Yeah, they were like 280,000.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good price.
And like I said, I'm not sure, maybe could we clarify, because they have the asterisk down here that says prices rates are tax
Yeah.
inclusive and no annual contract, but it's not like they have the asterisk by the number that we could, so I'm assuming that means,
Joanne verified, right? They did.
it does
they did
include it,
yeah.
okay.
Jean?
So, yeah, I was gonna say the same thing about the Eagle one, but you could, for 306,000, they use their own vehicle, right? Their own vehicle, and SVCA provides the fuel, but it's their own vehicle. So for the same thing that we're getting, they use their own vehicle. So I just wanna make that. And then how long, so the people that we use now, do we have an extended contract? We cancel the
We're
contract?
month to month right now.
Month to month, okay.
Yep. Any other questions about this tonight? Okay, we're gonna move on. We got survey of the community, our next step, ASAP. And at the same time, keep your head spinning about how we can count this whole community. All right, moving on to C, recreation corridor updates and discussion of next steps. Okay, it's getting late, but, so we got our comments back. It's same thing that we discussed last time. Has there been any thoughts of anybody of how they want to propose with the recreation corridor? Earlier, we were talking about Pavilion 6, or Barn 6, tearing it down and putting up the pavilion. Any questions or comments, any further discussion on that?
Just when we're gonna get drawings and the revised $3 million
Well, that
breakdown.
would be moving forward. That means we need to take a vote on that. We need to get some more information then. If so that's what we're here for, to find out what the board's direction is. Do we want to continue with that? Does the board have second thoughts about not doing a pavilion at all, tearing down the 6 and putting in a parking lot? Has there been any additional thoughts from anybody?
I've been waiting to look at numbers and,
Yeah.
I think until you know exactly where we are with barn 6, we know how much barn 8 is, basically. But there's the whole question of, if you don't do barn 6, exactly where and how are you gonna meet when that facility is closed for 6 weeks or longer at a time?
Well, there are options and.
Yeah, I know, there are not a lot of
Yeah,
options.
that's true.
The biggest impediment to holding meetings has been removed by the inaction of the Bill 5129, because regardless of what it says in our bylaws, which did not allow us to meet virtually as a board unless there was an emergency declared by the governor, the new WUCIOA statutes do allow us to meet virtually. And the virtual meeting platform meets all of the requirements. Owners can attend, owners can comment, a record is kept, so we don't need a physical meeting place.
What about then what do you do with the gym?
No, there's a lot of it.
And getting in for the swimming during the summer, and getting into the rooms down here to be able to get in and shower and that sort of thing.
Okay, we'll go Tom and then Jean. Tom?
Yeah, I'm thinking as far as the meeting place goes, the fire station will be done this summer, and they used to have a pretty nice conference room.
Yeah, I know, but we could figure that stuff out. It's just, the question is, what do we want to do tonight? Do we want to move forward with, like Linda's suggesting, we get cost, what it's going to cost to actually tear down the pavilion and put it, or the barn and put up the pavilion? Jean?
I am kind of new to this discussion a little bit, but I've been thinking more and more about all the cost that goes into all of this, and quite honestly, at first I was all for barn 6, and then coming back to barn 7, but the more I think about it, because of the expense that you're paying into barn 6, is to just take barn 6 down and make this a wonderful structure with all the money you're gonna do, because you have to be a way to do something with this barn anyway, and we know it's already just $4 million just to make it so it's a sound building, and then to try to upgrade it, it's gonna be another $2 to $4 million probably. So I know there's a lot of logistics that has to work out. I do think they could do barn 8 in sections where you could still during the summertime have the pool open and then close that area and work on that area in the wintertime. I'm sure there's ways to do that. I'm sure there's ways you can get workout equipment in another part of the area. I guess I might question the value of doing a pavilion, open air pavilion, and then just a couple of other rooms that are over there. That's just my opinion, but I guess I'm pretty new to this discussion.
Did you already go?
No, I just have a question now.
No, go ahead.
So, like barn 6, if we tear it down and we don't put anything there, we lose the space. Is it possible to expand barn 8, or are we restricted to the barn 8 footprint as well?
The existing footprint.
Can we make it 3 stories though? But can we make it 3
It already
stories?
is 2 stories.
Can we make it 3 stories?
You have to pay significant money for that, but yes, you can. There's a limit on how close you can be to the creek, but
Right.
how high from the creek.
In the height
how high you
too.
go. Yeah.
And relocating the creek's out of the question.
Yeah.
Yes, let's read.
Trying to do that on its own, I know.
The new plan.
John, did you have-
Oh, well, I think we were discussing something different, I guess, in long-range planning, but Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong. But I thought it was gonna be more of like a multi-purpose facility, not a pavilion.
Yeah, I call it pavilion, just
Okay.
because I don't like barn being called a barn.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, it's gonna be a almost like a gym, right?
Yeah.
Multi-purpose room, right?
Okay.
Sport court.
I was like, all right, I'm way off.
Yeah.
Because like when I think of pavilion, I'm thinking of just like, essentially
Open
a
air.
giant gazebo, like.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, so.
Yeah, no, it'll be a closed structure with roll-up doors. The
Ah,
idea was to hold
yeah.
craft fairs there and keep those things going,
Cool.
have events, farmers markets, which
Right.
I've mentioned a few times and things like that over there. But yeah, single story, but a sport court, so they can play basketball and stuff like that on it.
Totally.
Two different
That's,
sports.
I'm in favor of that. That's, I thought that was a great idea.
More family oriented, for sure. And then Tommy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward and seeing what the costs are for a very simplified barn 6. I think we really need to keep it simple. And also I look at the old engineering reports from about 9 years ago where it said it's going to be costing us more to try to fix barn 8 as opposed to taking it down and rebuilding. So I think we need more information, and I think we need to keep moving forward at this point. I don't think we're ready just to drop barn 6 yet, because we've already lost barn 7. We've lost the rotunda. Do we keep losing facilities, or do we try to make things better?
Okay. Tom, and then you have another one, Jean?
I was just gonna make a little response. I agree, it's tough to lose facilities, but I guess what I was thinking is instead of, we weren't really losing a facility if we could add to this facility. If it's impossible or too expensive to make this a 3-story building, then it doesn't make sense. I agree, I would move forward with barn 6 instead.
And Tom, and
Yeah, I'm thinking a simplified barn 6, like we're talking about, it would be fast to put up, and it would be better than nothing on that spot. And it would give us options of what we do here long term.
okay. All right, we ready
Don't
to,
worry. Are you?
Oh, I'm in. I'm
all right,
in
do we
favor of
want
barn
to move forward with taking a vote on moving forward?
I'll second that.
Okay, so let me make the motion.
Oh, sorry, that's you.
No, that's fine. I've got to figure out how to word this, so, because we're gonna have to authorize the GM to move forward. She needed more stuff to do. I'll have to work with you on this, so we need to obtain, we need to put a package together. So we already have our plan check comments, that's great, the official plan check comments came, no changes from what I summarized in our last meeting. Everything is fine, the only thing is the timeline, it's gonna take, still 6 months or so for them to get through that, which is, it's a little more than usual, but normally in 6 months, you're already through the first and second round plan check comments, and you should almost be getting ready to get a permit. Up here, it's quite a bit slower for whatever reason.
We could take the next 2 weeks to put together a bid package and just bring that back and ask for authorization to send it out. What do you think?
Well, that's what we'd have to do that.
That way you don't have to write the motion now. We've got consensus that we want to go
Is it
forward.
enough consensus? It is, okay.
All of those who'd like to move forward with the Barn 6 concept, raise their hand, just
Consensus.
straw vote.
All right, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's,
Oh, timing, you got
Yeah,
your, are they, all right,
timing,
counted, all right, I
Joe's a
can't see
yes.
that far.
yeah, timing, Joe, vote yes. Sean, myself, Tom, Lori.
I just really would like the board to look at a concept,
Yeah,
you know, and it's like, we haven't done that yet. We saw the early ones with the town halls.
So
but
2
nothing
weeks
since.
isn't gonna be enough time to get us the actual numbers.
No, just put together the
Proper.
materials to go out.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So-
like a plan.
Yeah, so the idea of this is gonna be a pre-engineered structure, right? So as Tom mentioned, to save time, we'll
Yep.
put it together. We don't put it together. We could, we save money. But that's the idea behind it, a simplified structure, quite honestly. Try to save as much money as we possibly can doing that, getting that up, and then saving all the rest of the money for here because we know we're gonna need it. Eventually, no matter what we do here, we're gonna need that and probably more, so.
It's like it's a bigger.
Okay, are we good with that then?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. All right, moving on to new business. We have a resolution regarding WUCIOA.
Purpose of.
I'm sorry, Joanne.
Yeah, the purpose of this approval request is to ask the board of directors to adopt the resolution regarding WUCIOA-related statutory amendments. In 2025, the Washington State Legislature passed 2 bills, ESB 5686 and ESB 5129, that apply to Sudden Valley. The provisions in these bills supersede the provisions of SVCA's governing documents. Because revising SVCA's governing documents will be a lengthy process that cannot be finalized until the membership votes to approve the changes, this resolution informs members of the needed changes and affirms that the association will comply with the new provisions. A summary of the provisions of the proposed resolution was attached to the memo, and hopefully you've all had a chance to review that. And because of this, I request that the board adopt the proposed resolution.
Yep, so it's very important, we move forward, I believe that we move forward with this. I'll read the motion and then we can have any discussions we need, but this allows us to move in the right direction. The motion, I move that the Sudden Valley Board of Directors adopt the proposed resolution regarding WUCIOA-related statutory changes which became effective on January 1st, 2026. So these are things that we need to change. We'll go around and ask if you have any questions. If not, I made the motion. Can I get a second? I'll second. Thank you, Tom. Okay, questions?
I just have one question. Are we including Appendix A, or are we gonna talk about that separately?
All of this came directly from Richard Davis, and is required to keep us compliant with the new regulations. So there is no opportunity for wordsmithing or selection.
The only thing I'm concerned about is there's a policy we had to do last year because of that. And I'm just saying, the way that the policy is in here doesn't look like our policies, but if it's gonna supersede our current policy, that should be part of it. Because it supersedes what's in there right now.
I would suggest adopting this in total. Our current procedures, which are not policies, but our current procedures, work in both environments. They work under these provisions and they work under the previously approved policy provisions. So my point is, there would be no change in how we operate. It's worded very differently. I agree.
Yeah, it's just that I'm just concerned that right now we're sitting with the 2025 delinquent accounts policy in there. And this whole Appendix A, that's just collection policy, should become a new policy 2026-01 and would be, and then you would basically rescind the 2025, that's all.
Our current policy is written more like a procedure. It details specific actions and specific documents to be used at each step. It is compliant with the rules that are laid out here, which is a legal way of saying what we need to do, and then our current processes adhere to these requirements.
Any other questions? All right, so the motion on the table is move that the Southern Valley Board of Directors adopt a proposed resolution regarding WUCIOA-related statutory changes which became effective on January 1st, 2026. Motion made by myself, seconded by Tom. All in favor? That's unanimous.
Okay, so for the purpose of posting this, I'm going to circulate it. If you could sign.
Please read it before you sign it. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, and then we'll pass that around and we'll move on because it's getting late, guys. Request for approval for ACC policy revisions. That's on page 43.
The purpose of this memo is to request approval for the proposed amendments to SVCA's current Architectural Control Committee policies. SVCA's current ACC policies were last updated and released on January 1st, 2025. Since then, the group of people working with these policies on a daily basis have identified sections of the document that lack clarity, include inconsistencies, or are out of date with current construction practices. Additionally, some changes have been made to reflect that most lots currently being developed are challenging in some way, with steep slopes, wetlands requirement, or other elements requiring workarounds. To assist you in reviewing the proposed changes, we prepared the attached table listing each section and the reason for or description of the revision. The ACC chair, the ACC inspector, the SVCA compliance manager, the maintenance and facilities manager, and me, the general manager, have all reviewed the document and the proposed changes. We feel confident that these changes will improve the quality of the document as a reference for homeowners and builders and will also help to better protect the unique environment of Sudden Valley. For these reasons, I recommend that the SVCA Board of Directors approve the proposed revisions to the ACC policies document.
I'm going to read the motion. Move that the SVCA Board of Directors approve the proposed revisions to the ACC policies document. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Linda. Sorry, I wrote Tom down.
Okay, I'll second.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
Can we get questions? Do you have any questions regarding the proposed changes? Oh, bless you. Okay, I have a couple of questions real quick, hopefully. Is in the first change on there regarding the quarry spalls. In the diagram, it shows geomat, right? But it's not, or geogrid, whatever you want to call it, matting. It's not, I don't see it listed in here as one of the procedures. So I thought that should have been added. Like if you went and looked at any culverts they did recently, they always put the matting down first and then everything on top of it. And then is one, your item number 1 and item number 4, the last one almost seems to be the same or redundant because it talks about walls.
I think one of them is just a definition to include in the beginning of the policies. So you're talking about?
The first one?
Yeah, the first one is just to define parcels. So it's just going in the definitions, it's not like telling us how to use them or anything. Yeah, and then the next one is how to use them.
And then, so the diagram that's associated with that, I don't see any reference to the diagram.
That would be an appendix.
Yeah, so, okay, so but there's gonna be a reference to it, right? You're gonna have a reference to that, or is there gonna be a link or something like that for people?
Yeah, I think generally within the policy guide, there are references to a relevant appendix. So
Okay.
that should be included.
So we just wanna make sure that that has any linked or something relevant so they can see, and then the geogrid, I think, should be showed. It's on your, it's actually in here, in your diagram, which
It
is
says at the
fine.
very top that it's new appendix K.
It just doesn't have a line to it that says what it is. Okay, and then the last thing I had on that was, the other thing was a link where to find watershed BMPs. I'm sure the county must have something now with all the Lake Whatcom Management Policy Group or something like that. They should have some link for BMPs. Yeah, I think that way a builder could look at that and just click, so you're referring them to a link. If we're not gonna tell them what the BMPs are, it just says BMPs will be their own concept of what a BMP is. All right, and that's all I had. You have any other questions from anybody?
One other, just a little wordsmith in the minimum living space. Do we need to include the carports do not count toward the total area calculation?
Yeah, it's in there.
It's in there.
I mean, do we need to, because?
Yes, I think you do.
Minimum finished interior area.
So people use their garage as an ADU, their carport.
It doesn't,
I got you.
it doesn't hurt to have it in there.
It doesn't, yeah, I think that's funny though. Yeah.
Oh, so I read this as a carport is like a non-enclosed garage, but this is referring to carport. An enclosed garage could be considered a carport.
No, this would be a carport.
So, but a garage, an enclosed garage
Part of the,
is not considered living space.
It's not.
Okay.
It should be.
So why do we say that carports do not count, but we don't address garages?
The problem with this is you're not seeing all the other text that's in the
Okay.
manual.
Yeah.
Tell me to shut
That's
up.
got it.
The issue this is really addressing is the contractors were confused thinking that the actual footprint of the house had to be 1,000 square feet. And that we get variances for that all the time. So they can have a 900 square foot footprint and another 900 on top. And that ticks all the boxes.
18.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And in
Got
some
it.
cases it's required because there's wetlands or something like that. The lot is certainly.
Yeah.
Underdone. All right, so the motion on the table. Are we good with adding the links and stuff like that? That's not a problem?
I think we do have some links in there
Yeah, it might
already.
be.
Yeah,
It's just
if
not
one
on
is
here.
available, we can add it for sure.
Yeah,
And I
okay,
have that
perfect.
noted as a change.
Yeah, perfect. All right, and then on the picture, like, see it shows the mounting, that should have, like, these all pointing out what it is, that should say geofabric or something like that. Because that's what that represents.
Okay.
Yeah, so it should just say, it's just so they know to do it properly. Because other than that, they could just throw spoils down there, right? And throw your rock down there, your riprap, and call it good. So we prefer it to be done right, it's not on us, it's on the builder.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
Okay, all right, great, I just wondered, all right. So the motion was moved that the SVCA Board of Directors approve the proposed revisions to the ACC policies document. Was motion by me, seconded by Linda, all in favor with the changes, with the changes. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, our last item is 8C, the one we amended the agenda to have, and that's the capital request for the golf bridge repairs. Joanne?
So the purpose of this discussion is to request funding for urgent repairs needed for 2 golf course bridges. On January 14th of this year, Turf Care Superintendent Greg Wadden drove over the number 4 golf bridge and heard a crack. He stopped to inspect the bridge and discovered a large crack that appeared in one of the main support beams. He immediately closed the bridge and alerted me and Tyler Andrews, SVCA's Capital Projects Manager. I spoke with Tyler and authorized him to use on-call funds to arrange for an engineer to inspect the damaged bridge. He was able to schedule this emergency inspection along with the biannual inspection of all of SVCA's bridges so that we would not have to pay for the engineer to come out on site twice. As a result of the completed inspection, the engineer recommended that we repair both the number 1 and the number 4 bridges because they showed very similar patterns of rot in the main wooden support beams. Since one of those beams had failed, it seems clear that future failures of the other beams could occur. At SVCA's direction, Integrity Structural Engineering prepared repair plans for the number 4 and number 1 golf bridges as a follow-up to their on-site inspection. These plans were received by SVCA on January 30th and were used to estimate the cost of the needed repairs. At this time, golfers are detouring to avoid using the number 4 bridge. The number 1 bridge is still in use as the engineers felt it was safe for lightweight equipment and golf carts. Turf Care's heavy machinery is not using the older bridges. Thank goodness. The proposed repairs will take about 6 working days to complete, but the steel support beams require a full 3 weeks for manufacture and delivery. We'd like to begin the repairs as soon as possible so that the courses return to full functionality before warmer weather returns and golf traffic increases. So that's just the background. Here's the analysis. The SVCA golf course has 8 bridges. One of those bridges was replaced after being significantly damaged by the November 2021 flood. The number 2 bridge was repaired in 2024 when a wooden support beam was found to be rotten during the biennial inspection. At this time, 2 bridges need repair. So that means we will have 4 bridges that are returned to full functionality. Using the repair plans prepared by Integrity, Tyler Andrews of P&W reached out to Stremler Gravel, one of our on-call contractors, to obtain estimates for labor and materials. Stremler Gravel completed bridge repairs in 2024 and are available to provide quick response for the current repairs. The total cost of these repairs, inclusive of tax and a 10% contingency, is $58,763.33. The memo that I attached gives you more detail about that estimate. The 2026 SURF capital budget includes $101,226 for the replacement of Bridge 1 in 2032. By completing the repairs in 2026 at a much lower cost, we will extend the useful life of the bridge to 2041. Further, by replacing the wooden supports with galvanized steel, we make it possible to replace the wooden planks that form the surface of the bridge on an as-needed basis, extending the life almost indefinitely. Similarly, the 2026 SURF capital budget includes $80,052 for the replacement of Bridge 4 in 2035. By completing the repairs this year at a much lower cost, we will extend the useful life of this bridge to 2041 also, with the same possibility of repairing the wood planks to further extend the life of the asset. To cover the cost of the repairs, we propose to delay the golf course cart path repairs that are currently scheduled for 2026 until next year, 27. $56,243 is budgeted for that work. We also propose to use the $2,813 residual from the 2025 golf course cart path repair project, if necessary, to cover the full cost of the 2026 bridge repair. For all these reasons, I request that the board authorize the spend of $56,243 from the SURF fund to be used for 2026 golf bridge repairs, and also authorize the finance director to close the 2025 golf cart path repair project 9725.09 and move $2,813 in residual funds to the 2026 golf bridge repairs project.
Okay, I'll read the motion and we can get going on this. I move that the board authorize the spend of $56,243 from the CRRF SURF fund to be used for the 2026 golf bridge repairs and authorize the finance director to close the 2025 golf cart path repair project 9725.09 and move $2,813 in residual funds to the 2026 golf bridge repairs project.
Second.
Thank you, Linda. Questions, comments?
I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we pay tax on Tyler's work that he does for us, like his construction oversight allowance?
No.
We don't pay tax on that, you're sure? Okay, just wanted to be sure. That's the one thing I had.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Yeah.
That's unanimous. All right, very good.
Won't be paid tax on.
Thank you guys very much. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:24 p.m.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Meeting adjourned.